Today, we're going to unravel the story of a man who, for 8 long years, was arguably the second most powerful person in all of Nigeria. A man who literally held the nation's entire justice system in his hands. But now, he finds himself on the completely other side of the law. This is the incredible paradox of Abubakar Malami. So let me just ask you this. When you think about power, politics, and controversy in Nigerian law over the last decade, what name comes to mind? For so many people, it's this guy right here. You see, from 2015 all the way to 2023, he was the Minister of Justice and Attorney General. But look, that wasn't just some fancy title. Think of it more like the command center for President Buhari's entire legal and anti-corruption agenda. It put Malami right at the absolute heart of Nigerian power. But here's the thing, Malami wasn't born into some political dynasty. His journey from the pretty quiet state capital of burning Kebbi all the way to the corridors of power in Abuja, well, it was incredibly fast. And as we're about to see, it was also highly strategic. So let's just break it down. He's born in Birnin, Kebbi, builds up a solid legal career, and then he jumps into politics. And he doesn't just dip his toe in. He becomes a key architect in forming the All Progressives Congress, the APC. That's the very party that brought President Buhari to power. And his reward? At just 48 years old, he became the youngest minister in the cabinet. I mean, that's a clear signal of a truly meteoric rise. It's also really important to understand his professional clout. Malami is a senior advocate of Nigeria, or SAN. Now, this isn't just a fancy title they hand out. It is the absolute pinnacle of the legal profession in the country, kind of like the Queen's Counsel in the UK. It means you're at the very top of your game. And in Nigeria, it commands an immense amount of respect and influence. And you know, a rise that fast is almost never an accident. Malami's career really shows a sharp understanding of Nigeria's super complex political chessboard. He had this keen ability to navigate all the internal party politics and align himself perfectly with the centers of power. It really proves that strategy, not just luck, paved his way to the top. Okay, so once he's in power, his entire time in office was defined by this really stark paradox. You've got the public pursuit of justice on one hand, and then a complete whirlwind of political controversy on the other. So let's look at the justice side first. His office claimed a major victory. He was central to negotiating the return of over $300 million of the infamous Abacha loot. That's money stolen by a former military dictator, hidden in foreign banks for decades. And the plan was to use all that recovered cash for critical infrastructure projects. But this is where we see a major power struggle. As the Attorney General, Malami technically oversaw the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, and he used that power decisively. He filed a petition against the EFCC's own chairman, Ibrahim Magu, accusing him of misconduct. This led to Magu's dramatic suspension, a move that sent total shockwaves through the establishment and pretty much cemented Malami's control. And that brings us to one of the biggest criticisms Malami ever faced. His office, using its constitutional power, took over and then later just withdrew several multi-billion naira corruption cases against some really powerful political figures. Critics were quick to point out that this often happened right after these individuals aligned with the ruling party. It fueled all these accusations that the Attorney General's office was being used to protect political allies, not actually fight corruption. And this leads us to another major contradiction, the public image of Malami as this generous philanthropist versus these really damning investigative reports about his family's sudden and frankly immense wealth. So first, let's talk about the philanthropy. Malami co-founded a nonprofit called KJDI. Its stated mission is to uplift rural communities by providing everything from clean water and medical care to empowerment opportunities. Sounds great, right? And its work has been substantial. I mean, we're not talking small change here. The foundation reportedly facilitated 3.2 billion naira in loans to thousands of people in his home state of Kebbi. That's a huge effort aimed at alleviating poverty. But, and there's always a but, isn't there? This public generosity was happening at the same time that serious questions were being asked about his private finances. As his philanthropic profile grew, so did the scrutiny from investigative journalists. Investigative reports started unearthing this just astonishing portfolio of assets that were allegedly acquired by Malami and his family while he was in office. We're talking assets that seemed way beyond the reach of a public servant's salary. I mean, hotels, multiple houses, a new school, and even businesses and event centers for his sons, who reportedly had no clear source of income to justify that kind of lavish lifestyle. So when he was confronted, Malami's defense was simple, and he was consistent. He basically said this wasn't new wealth, but just the fruit of successful businesses he'd set up long before his 2015 appointment. The problem was, critics noted he never really provided much public evidence to back that claim up, which just left all the allegations swirling. After he left office in 2023, you might think Malami's story would just fade from the headlines. But instead, a dramatic and completely unforeseen new chapter began. His story took a truly stunning turn after leaving office. He was arraigned not once, but twice. First by the EFCC, yep, the very same agency he once controlled, on charges of massive money laundering. And then, in an even more shocking development, he was arraigned by the State Security Service for terrorism financing. Now, that terrorism financing charge is exceptionally serious, and the irony is just deep. Prosecutors are alleging that while he was the nation's chief law officer, the guy tasked with upholding the law, he deliberately failed to prosecute suspected terrorism financiers. Now, to all of these charges, Malami has pleaded not guilty, which sets the stage for one of the most significant legal battles in Nigeria's recent history. Which leaves us with the ultimate question. Was he a dedicated public servant who really fought for justice and tried to uplift his community? Or was he a master political operator who used the law as a tool for power? The courts are going to decide his future, for sure. But Nigeria is now left to define his incredibly complex and paradoxical legacy.